Hello, folks. This is Mack Jackson Jr. from Technology Review, and I'm here with Laura Tucker. How you doing, Laura?
I'm great. Thanks, Mac. How are
Great.
you?
I'm doing fine. Thank you for meeting with me today. Laura Tucker is a senior deputy attorney general for Nevada Consumer Affairs Department, right? Consumer Protection.
Yes, it's the Nevada Attorney General's Office, Bureau of Consumer Protection. It's a long
Excellent.
title.
Yes, long title. Very good. Well, I want to talk with you today, too, and I'm glad we got a chance to talk again. You've been on my TV show before, and since we're going through, there are quarantines and people are staying at home and working from home, I want to talk about some of the issues that your office has discovered, or you'd like to have our audience know about protecting ourselves from scammers out there.
Yeah, right. So a lot of what we're seeing right now during the coronavirus pandemic are mainly phishing scams, social engineering scams, and bait and switch scams, which I can go over each of those briefly. And then, of course, there's a lot of scams that are related to the new stimulus package, both for small businesses and for individuals getting a stimulus check from the government.
Correct. And how are these scams being implemented, or how are victims being scammed by these type of bad guys?
So we're seeing the same sorts of platforms that are for all the other scams. It's just a different take on it. A lot of email scams, text message is a big one now, and now social networking as well. Sometimes they might reach out to you directly with an email, which is your traditional phishing scam, or they might reach out to you via Facebook Messenger, or another kind of like direct messaging on the social media platforms, or advertising. And that's a little bit different, kind of evolving area that we've been seeing. And then there's the traditional text messages or phone scams where people are getting phone calls.
Okay, so these phone calls that have been done, I've seen them here in our office, we send them ourselves, but give us your experience on that. So when someone calls on the phone, do they declare themselves as from law enforcement or from a governmental agency?
We've seen this in a bunch of different ways now. They could be saying that they're from the IRS, that they're from a bank, or maybe that they're from some sort of local agency if it's here in Nevada. But, so they might say they're a government official or an employee, and they might be saying something like, hey, we'd like to verify your social security number for the new check, or this is your bank and we'd like to ask for your account information. But that should be a red flag for you if you get one of these phone calls, because your bank's not going to call and ask you for your account number because they already have it.
Right. Very true. Very true. Yeah, I see some of these scams becoming very sophisticated, where they have collected data from other areas where they've broken into a breach, and they have just enough information to get the consumer to believe that it's them, that they have the authority to talk to. So what were some ways that you would suggest that consumers should beware of if they get these type of calls?
First of all, a lot of these different businesses and government agencies are not going to be reaching out to you by phone call. I know that right now the IRS is trying to set up a web portal, so then that way you can check on the status of your stimulus check. That's not quite set up yet, but they're hoping to try to get those checks out by mid-April. We're all kind of going through finding out the same information at the same time.
Sure.
The other thing is that you can reach out directly to your bank if you're interested in that small business loan. They did get completely overwhelmed with requests to fill out the paperwork for that. So it might take a few more days still for people to be able to get through. But one thing you want to keep in mind is that there's really no way to speed up the process. So if someone calls you and said, hey, we're going to charge you, if you pay $50 or some kind of fee, we can go ahead and get those documents through to you very quickly, and you'll get your loan in the mail quicker than everyone else. Right now, there's no programs that do that. So that's one red flag for that one.
Very good, yes. And another one I'd like to add to that too, is when the IRS when they do have their URL set up, it's for consumers to be very careful when they are entering that URL that they may get from an email, because you can always spoof a different email address or a URL address from your bank or the IRS. So just be very, very careful, because these hackers and scammers, they have created their these fake pages to look exactly like the IRS or exactly like your bank, with pieces of information from your account on the screen. And all you need to fill out maybe the last 4 digits of your social security number, because they have the rest of it, right? Just
Yes.
enough information that you think that they're legitimate, but they're not. So be very, very careful.
Yeah, and one way to avoid that is to really make sure that you're only clicking on links from legitimate sources. If it comes in an email, I would maybe just avoid it altogether. But you know, if you're on a legitimate news site, one that you know is a true one, like your local newspaper, or if you're on the AG's website and you click on a link from there, we make sure that our links are all correct before we put them up there.
Yes, yes, true, very true, very, very true. So with this type of scams, there's the SBA loans as well, where bad guys or scammers are trying to get small businesses to go to a website. So they're doing it in several different ways, which is really interesting. They're using social engineering via emails, fake websites, but they're also using the one-on-one by picking up a phone and calling the person. Now, I find that that's very brazen, that you could actually call the individual with partial information regarding their financial background, about their business, because they stole that from another site that they've hacked into, and trying to get the individual to act on a certain type of scam.
Yeah, and not only are people are these scammers able to get stuff from different hacks, but also aware of the stuff that you're putting online on social media. I mean, everyone wants to be able to advertise their business, but really try to think about what the person on the phone is telling you, and if this is something that maybe you've put up somewhere that's on some site somewhere that is publicly available information that's using to try to trick you. Right.
Try to use information to trick you. It's amazing what people will do. They can only use their power for the good. Really amazing. So as far as filing complaints, what would you suggest victims do if they suspect that they've been scammed? How will they contact your office, and how does that work?
So the easiest way to file a complaint with us is on our website. That is ag.nv.gov. And you can go ahead on there and you can fill out the complaint form online. I would suggest to include everything that you can that might help document what happened, because the more information that you give us, the easier it is for us to investigate. If you don't have access online, then the phone number is, I just have to glance it over here. It's 888-434-9989.
Okay,
and that's the hotline that we've set up.
One more time.
888-434-9989.
Great.
And someone should be able to walk you through the process of how to fill out a complaint form with our office. And we've got our constituent services has been working nights and weekends to try to get a handle on all the complaints and get them to our complaint team to start addressing these.
Great. And these complaints, have most of them been addressed, or have the bad guys been prosecuted from this?
So so far, the whole process is that the complaint form comes in and it's evaluated by our constituent services, and it's routed to the correct department. A lot of times it goes to ours in the Bureau of Consumer Protection, but we also work with an agency called Nevada Consumer Affairs, whom I know has been a guest on your show before.
Yes.
And they help us out as well with investigating these complaints. And so we'll evaluate the complaint, we'll go through all the documentation, and we'll usually send a letter to the person or the company that the complainant is filing the complaint against to try to figure out more information about what's going on. And sometimes to inform them of the law if they're not aware. For example, not quite technologically related, but we're also handling a lot of the eviction moratorium complaints.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, as you may know, the governor issued an eviction moratorium during the state of emergency, and the Bureau of Consumer Protection is handling that. So if we get a complaint of someone that's trying to evict someone right now, then we try to work with the landlord to try to figure out what is up and just inform them of the law if they're not aware. Also,
you mentioned, we talked about price gouging as well.
Yes, so we're also taking in price gouging is basically when someone is, or a company or someone is charging an overinflated price. We don't have laws exactly on point in Nevada, but we're working with what we've got to try to address those issues. It's important to keep in mind that just because someone is charging a very high amount for something, it doesn't necessarily mean it's price gouging. So it's a very case-by-case basis if you're filing one of those complaints.
Like hand sanitizer and toilet paper that people are hoarding and then trying to sell it on eBay.
Yes, and that's been a problem all across the country that AG's offices are trying to address.
Right. Interesting. Interesting. Well, that's good to hear that consumers have advocacy groups and law enforcement out to protect them for these type of issues, because you're right, a lot of this going on. And it's good to know that your department agency is there to help people out as well. We definitely appreciate you being on our show today. And I would like to talk to you again and keep in touch with us on what's going on in the AG's office and some of these prosecutions that are happening. I'd like to have you on again, and we'll talk about some more things related to identity theft and cyber crimes. That's been very much on the increase, what's going on right now as well.
It has been. Yeah, thanks, Mac, for having me.
You're very, very welcome. Hold on, we'll be right back with you, okay? Folks, we'll be right back here in Technology Review after these messages.